riffs, beats, and licks. Isn't it sort of obvious that in the end they'll start including this kind of stuff? Have you ever listened to the music of Charles Manson? Have you ever listened to his sort of very general folky country acoustic guitar sets? The world is confusing. There's more than one way of looking at reality.
I love Russell Brand. I think he's one of the greatest articulators alive. I feel Russell has found Christ consciousness because of his allegiance to stability and I think losing himself through various addictions and peak fame, get him to the Greek. He sees the utility in sensibility really well, but he's also been super gifted. I saw him speak at Mar-a-Lago, and bro is the most articulate, off the top of his dome, human I've ever seen in my life. And my father, who's probably the other most articulate human I've ever seen in my life, stood up, hit the table and said, "Here, here," and later said, "That's the most articulate human I've ever seen in my life," speaking about Russell Brand. So I love Russell's points about Kanye. It bridges a really interesting prompt. The swastika is the most triggering symbol of all time. Other than the upside down cross, what's the most triggering symbol from a Western perspective? The Western perspective is kind of the lead of the modern perspective. I think Western culture leads capitalism, and entertainment and media lead global culture in terms of communicative expression. We're not talking about Kanye and Hitler from a perspective of like, he's losing his mind and this is cancel culture, symbolic appropriation. We're stepping back a second, or at least Russell is stepping back a second. And it's giving me permission to step back a second as well. I know people who identify as Jewish. I know people who identify as Black. You have one of the most famous Black men of all time, definitely living, saying a phrase that basically can't exist. All my N-words Nazis, Heil Hitler. What? Okay, I am a student of hip hop. My father was a student of rock and roll. My father was a student of Black musicians who channeled their pain and trauma into musical expression in service of humanity. I find myself to do the same thing. Basketball introduced me to hip hop. I've been a student of hip hop since I was 18 years old, probably before that. Since then, I've been trying to master the art of rhyming and making beats. Kanye is the top of the top in terms of that art form, making beats and putting words together on top of those beats. The making beats part is all about sampling. KRS-One has this incredible book called The Gospel of Hip Hop. And inside the Gospel of Hip Hop, he's not the only one to identify a few main pillars of hip hop. You got the MC, you got the producer, the beat maker, you got the b-boy, the dancer, you got the DJ, and then you got graffiti. Amongst that, Kanye has taken the visual artist, graffiti, into music videos. The producer mastered it, crowned by the sonic identity of Blueprint, Jay-Z. The MC surpassed his mentor, top of the top. He doesn't really dance, although he took it to, I would say, like a shamanic tribal expressionism that isn't necessarily associated with b-boy dance culture of hip hop, but he's still moving his body in a way that I would say is almost more free of expressionistic rigidity that you would find in the attention-getting protocols of hip-hop b-boy dancers for the most part. Some break it completely. But Kanye, undeniable, one of the greatest artists of all time. So now he's using the swastika and Hitler. How do we process this? The fact that we can't metabolize it is the same thing that happens in, it's the Black Album and the, what's the name of the documentary that depicts Jay-Z's end of career Black Album? Thank you. Jay-Z's Fade to Black documentary where Pharrell makes this beat, I think it's Allure, and Jay-Z does this face crunch thing. It's just like the most memified version of it. But in the hip hop community, and I would say in all artistry, there's a moment where an observer observes the art and their reaction as a sign of significance, recognition, as well as like almost a protest of its existence, as well as an acknowledgement and reverence of the artist's upper echelon embodiment. There's a face scrunch. And the face scrunch is like someone farted in your nose and then an angel and Jesus are playing rock, paper, scissors. Elvis and John Lennon are solving a Rubik's Cube. And the Dalai Lama and the Buddha are judging it. So you make this face scrunch because it's like denial and acceptance simultaneously. So that's something that happens as a phenomenon in hip hop. I'm saying this as a student of it And maybe one day the community will recognize me a significant voice on the topic. But as of right now, I just recognize myself as a student and a scholar of this library of identity that is of a very specific people's lineage. Now modern culture has access to it. Kanye is maybe the most famous prophet or priest of this lineage of shamanic metabolization of a global community's processing of life. Hip hop is about recontextualizing previously existing art. You have an old soul sample, the voice gets sped up, and certain levels and EQ gets adjusted, and now it's different. You had this other thing, and now it's a new thing. And then you put drums on it, and someone raps on top of it, and then the raps, they say a word and a phrase, and that means one thing and two thing and three things. So that's a triple entendre. And so your mind goes, whoa, but also the energy of the beat makes you go, whoa. So your face scrunches, you go, whoa. So it's this processing of an art form that gives you a facial expression. And that's what I think of when I hear Kanye making Heil Hitler, or Cousins, where he talks about giving his cousin head. All of these are like jaw-dropping moments. And over the years, I've watched Brother Ye. The only person I know that has watched Kanye as close as I have is my friend and dear brother, Hassan. There's a lineage of people who watch him so closely and then you reinterpret it. I've been making music and putting out hip hop music and making beats for the best rappers that I know since I was 20. And there's an unspoken lineage in that art form. So when you do it at a high level, you do it at a high level. But now Kanye's done it at a high level to such a degree where he's doing something different that none of us have access to. Probably because of his celebrity status and cultural position, he's able to see things that none of us can see. He values things that none of us can value because all of us value survival. Let's admit it. You let me know if you could use a little bit more money. If you're watching this video and you have no desire for money, I would love to know you and understand how you got to that point. But for most of us, we're working, and our work and our passion equates to money, and money gives us return, ROI, on our energy and expenditures, and we get back money. That's how we get paid. So if you're an artist and you're able to complete the video game of life to the degree in which you now no longer have any concerns of money, and you're looking at the world like it's this big, it's like a big Play-Doh art form Lego Rubik's Cube, and you're just adjusting it. You're just manipulating the quantum field of existence. And so now you choose the swastika and Hitler. What are you doing? What are you choosing? What are you speaking about? What are you choosing as instruments amongst your symphony, as elements amongst your recipe? What is this guy doing? I get that it's super triggering. And I do not identify as Jewish, but I know some people who do. And I'm sensitive to the fact that it's extraordinarily triggering and vulgar to the highest degree. People talk about interventions when someone has lost their way. I don't know if Kanye has people around him like that would give intervention if he had, quote unquote, lost the way to such a degree. But look at this guy's life. Look at what this guy has been through. So now he's choosing Heil Hitler. The video depicts like ancient animal skin covered African lineage people screaming Heil Hitler. It can't happen. The fact that it can't happen, I feel like, is the same thing that when a rapper says a thing that's really surprising in a traditional hip hop moment, it's like he's done that so far to the extent of the canvas's potential. Leonardo da Vinci modernized and evolved painting so far. He understood anatomy so far. Then you have the end of that realism to now where Salvador Dali is taking abstract, I don't even know what that's called. Then you have Picasso, you have all these painters that are adjusting that art form. So what was considered the highest level of that art form, which I believe is a metabolization of human experience for the collective, the artist steps forward and puts that forth into the art form. So paint, it's got this whole lineage of that. Hip hop has that same lineage. Hip hop is just a component of the larger expansion of music. So now you have Kanye, and what Russell Brand is talking about is hip hop flips samples, sonic samples, music samples, soul samples, and they recontextualize them. So when I see what Kanye's doing, I feel like he's recontextualizing pop culture itself. And it's like that autistic kid that you say, don't press the red button, I'm gonna leave the house. It's inside of the cabinet, inside of the blue door, don't go in the blue door. Inside the blue door is a closet, and then there's a red button, don't touch it. The kid now has to go and see it. There's a pressurization that he's now been made aware of. And I feel like this is happening to Brother Ye. And yeah, I'm super sensitive to the fact that it's extraordinarily triggering and you could say unsensitive to a group, more than one group, potentially. But it's also its own art form. To antagonize cancel culture when you have no fear of it. My dad had a show last night, and on the way home, I want to make music with him. I feel like I've never really been cool. I've stumbled upon cool here and there, but I've always been kind of nerdy, and my disposition is trying too hard. I mentioned wanting to make music with my dad recently. He was like, I'm just tired. And I was like, look, I never want to be in your liability or stress column, so no pressure on making music with me. You're the person in the family who's famous for it. I'm not. It would obviously benefit me. No pressure, but I would love to make music with you. I said that to him briefly last night. Right around the same time, I said, heard Kanye's new song? He said, no, I heard something about Hitler or something like that. And I was like, yeah. The lyrics say, all my N-words Nazis, N-word Heil Hitler. And he laughed. He said something humorous. And I was like, yeah, I think it is funny. And he was like, of course it is. And I was like, yeah, but I don't think everybody can recognize that humor. So music and anthropological evolution gets to a certain point, let's say in the 60s and 70s, where music had to be played, but then recording devices allowed technology to get to the vinyl record. And then you're in New York City, it's the 60s and the 70s, and someone wants to hop back and forth between the hippest point of a record. So now it's not about musicality and ability of playing a musician-enabled instrument. It's now a technician-enabled referencing of the highest degree and socially recognizable as like grooviest part or coolest part of a record. And they're hopping back and forth between two pieces of that same record, which only technology of the turntables allows. And you move that forward, the MC is really the announcer of the DJ's ability to hop back and forth between that hip part of the record. Move that forward from 1973 to 2003 when he dropped College Dropout. So you have this character, Kanye West, who has emerged in the pop culture zeitgeist, the fabric of modern human existence. And amongst all of the most traumatic, historically significant reference points all time in this eon of human existence, there's this thing called Nazi Germany and the Holocaust. And there's a symbol that they wore upon them, and they believed that the Jewish people should be exterminated. We call this genocide, the greatest trauma in human history. So you have a rapper, an African lineaged, chocolate-skinned, melanated human being who is the greatest of all time of this art form, hip-hop. And instead of recontextualizing soul samples and hopping back and forth, you have this post-Joe Biden, current 2.0 second term Trump America of 2025. And this human, Kanye West, has gone through a marriage and a divorce of one of the most famous women of our modern day, Kim Kardashian. So he is on the other side of this unraveling of the Kardashian existence, but is also the skill set specifically. He's not famous for no reason. He's not famous for a gimmick. He's the artist of the hip hop culture and community, held up because of the skill set, because of talent, because of dopeness, because of palette. He grabs a swastika. From his perspective, he's described it as the record labels were owned by white Jewish men. His lawyers were white Jewish men. The bankers were white Jewish men. So in my Rocco Nugent, white Caucasian, currently living in Texas vantage point, I'm watching the most famous black man that I know to exist, maybe other than Obama, having a protest of his own that a conspiracy of Jewish white men were taking over his life. And that he, because of his vantage point, a messiah complex, to say the least, was aware of a conspiracy that no one else was aware of, that Jewish people were the sole culture that no one else could talk about. And so amongst this hip hop lineage of saying catchy phrases and witty things that you scrunch your face up about, because you've never heard that soul sample flipped in that way, sped up with synthesizers and hard drum trap anger and aggression from the hood of an inner city, and then recontextualized to be talking about women and beauty and luxury and drugs and success, when the soul samples about pain and anger of the 1960s America from the soul band. That recontextualization as an art form is now recontextualizing the story of Adolf Hitler as the ultimate villain, the ultimate figure of cancellation, attempted to cancel Kanye. Mind you, I'm not even attempting to defend the guy. I'm looking at what I think is one of the most incredible spectacles of all time. I recently found this piece by a guy named Guy Debord, or maybe it's Guy Debord, but he's a French 1960s philosopher. In 67, he wrote a piece called The Society of the Spectacle. And I'm surprised I never found this before. I'm 34 years old, but I found it recently, and I'm reading it and I'm like, oh my God. It's like that video clip of Jim Morrison from The Doors talking about at some point everybody's going to have their own reality show. It's like prophecy mixed with expectation, mixed with study, mixed with intellect, mixed with wisdom. It's a high level skill set. You know, philosophers are like Nostradamus. Were they gifted? Was it spiritual? Or were they so anthropologically in tune that they were observing a pattern, like the Fibonacci sequence, Da Vinci? You're looking ahead because you have your base needs met. So you're now looking ahead so far to where most of your active community doesn't even understand what you're doing, and maybe they call you crazy and they isolate you, because what you're seeing and predicting and observing is potentially likely because of the patterns that your skill set allows you to see that others do not. It interrupts social continuity. It interrupts reality. It interrupts what other people think is possible. It interrupts what other people think is appropriate, especially if it touches on such a trauma as the Holocaust. It interrupts the language of society itself. So what is Brother Ye doing? I don't know. I'm watching and I'm observing, and I think it's fascinating. And I'm listening to the Hitler song and I see the video and I'm like, I can't imagine what my face looked like. I should have filmed that. I'm watching all these other reaction videos and I'm like, yeah, I remember making that same face. It's like it's off limits. It's like he finally found the sample to sample that was the most off limit icon in the video game. And then he recontextualizes it. So he's saying, you know, all my N-word. Show me the lyrics of Kanye West's new song, Hitler. Kanye West, Hitler lyrics. So to even think about this is off limits. It's all cancel culture, like hypersensitive. It's so funny because my father says it every time he performs. He says, I'm here to scare white people. And it's not a secret that there are more white people in America than any other lineage of people. It's not a secret that white people are considered soulless or indoctrinated in some kind of appropriate rigidity, that they have lost touch with certain rhythms and grooves and funk and soul and movement, that they have become robotic. People like my father and other people talk about how white people have no soul. And if you have soul for a white person, you say, well, you got a soul for a white person. Music is meant to evoke something. In this modern pop culture moment, Kanye's not evoking the old ideas of like, I'm here to make you dance, I'm here to make you move. He's playing with some intellectual, anthropological off-limit zone. It's a conversation about the limits of social appropriateness. People say that's not appropriate, or they say that's appropriation. You could say the most famous black man in the world is appropriating the most negatively oriented symbol of hate in all of existence. On the other side of dealing with the Jewish community in law and music label and banking, he has this anger that he admits to on the song. Here's some of the lyrics. N-word Heil Hitler, all my N-words Nazis. N-word Heil Hitler. She want to, it's funny that I can say fuck and then I can say Hitler, but I can't say the N-word. Isn't that interesting? I mean, I can say it. I could say the N-word right now. One of the things I do enjoy about my father is that you just don't know if he's going to say the N-word or not. I've been around my dad when he says the N-word. I ask my friends of African lineage, is that okay? Do you want me to talk to him? And they're like, it's okay. How is it okay? But if you hear it from him, it is, he was born in 1948. It's from a different world. Tell me how you feel about that in the comment section. It's funny that I could say fuck and I can't say the N-word. I find that fascinating. And maybe that's part of the tapestry of Americana and cultural sensitivity that Ye is playing with. He's adjusting things. He's sampling things. Maybe he doesn't even know what he's doing. I'd love to know. I'd love to ask him. I'd love to have a conversation with him. I feel like my calling is to translate the untranslatable. Maybe he'll call me to Spain. I just think it's fascinating. These are just words, but these words have meaning, and it means such an intensely violent reference point that people are like, that's not okay. The medium of his art form isn't just sonic. It's not the beats, it's not the rhymes. He's playing with things that are off limit. And amongst cancel culture and his post-Jewish legal battles and banking battles and record label battles, he's having a conversation with the universe. And as far as I can tell, he's just fearless as to who's watching or who approves of it or not. And he does self-identify as a channel, as a medium, someone that's in receptivity with God. I'd love to talk to the guy. What do you think? Would love to read your thoughts in the comment section. I'm super curious as to how do we identify what's culturally okay? Through empathy, through a sense of shared somatic regulation. So if one person says what another person is triggered by, hopefully empathy and shared connectivity allows one person to recognize, wow, I shouldn't say that, or wow, that topic shouldn't be said. This community is going through something. Gaza, Jewish people, Black people, white people, Asian people, brown people, light-skinned people, the spectrum of identity between chocolate and vanilla, black and white. There's all kinds of things that we are psychosomatically educating each other about in real time. We watch the news, we tune in through social media, and we have this sense of identity that is on the balance beam of appropriateness, the balance beam of what's okay and what's not. So who are the artists among us? Who are the people that are playing with that barrier? They're adjusting it or flirting with it, flirting with what's okay and what's not okay. I just love what Russell Brand says, though. It's one of the most articulate things I've heard on the topic.
The party of 1930s Germany. What this actually is late post-modernity, where all cultural artifacts are being spilled into one cultural space and a new sense is being made of it.
All cultural artifacts are being spilled into one cultural space, and a new sense is being made of it. And what art form, what medium, what format, what delivery?
Exciting. It's a question for all of you.
What delivery system is better at that and more exact to that process than hip hop? I'm super curious. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I'd love to have a conversation about it. Much love. Namaste.